Hey basic class. Okay, next story is called Where Shall We Nest? Once upon a time all the birds had a meeting. The big rook took the topmost bough and began the talking. Caw, caw. This meeting is held to find out which would be the best place for us to nest in this year. Last year so many boys and girls found our nests and eggs, and alas, some of them took the eggs. So we must try to find safer places to build in this year, said the freckled thrush. Safe places, safe places. Tiddly, said the red robin, his bold black eyes looking all around. The very best places to build in are old kettles or saucepans or old boots in a ditch. Anything that has belonged to a man is nice to build in. That's a robin. I found before at my old school, St Martha's, during the 6-week holiday, obviously no one really went into the school. When we went back after the 6-week holiday, we had like an outdoor shelf unit, and it had one of those, you know, those throwy things that sort of like shaped in like a, you get them for dogs as well. That's like a, we've got them in the PE cupboard at school. I'll show you. Anyway, this was on a shelf, and within this, a bird had made its nest because it had the little arch shape. So she had collected mud, sticks, grass, and had made a lovely, really solid nest. It was very, very impressive. We thought it was a blackbird who'd made it, but could have been a robin, obviously, because in this story it says that the robin makes his nest within things that have been used by man. Anyway, bit of information. I don't think so, said the blue tit. But you are so friendly to man, aren't you, Robin? You are not afraid of him, as we are. No kettles for me. I always think some sort of a hole is the safest place. So blue tits nest in a hole. Well, you built yours in somebody's letterbox last year, said the thrush. That belonged to a man, didn't it? Well, it was a nice hole, said the blue tit. I chose it because it was a hole, not because it had anything in it or anything to do with man. Holes in trees are best, said the great tit. The woodpecker nodded his red splashed head. Yes, holes are good, he said. There aren't enough holes, said the starling. It's all very well for the woodpecker to talk. He can always make holes by drumming with his beak into the wood. We can't. I think that very best place is just under the eaves of the house, said the little house martin. It's cosy there and the eaves protect the nest. So, the house next door to me, every year, so the eaves of the house, where you've got the apex roof here, you might have a roof like this. So where the roof comes down here, so the bottom of this bit of roof here, you normally get your guttering, where it catches all the rainwater. There's a little gap between the guttering, which allows airflow into your house. These are called the eaves. Here is where birds can get in and out, and here is where they nest. Next door have them every year. I mean, I'm not a bird watcher, but they could be house martins, because we know from the story now that house martins like the eaves of the house to nest in. I've done that thing now where I've lost my place. Ah yeah, it's cosy there and the eaves protect the nest. What? Build a nest so near to people, said the rook. Caw, you must be mad. Don't the rough boys come and tear down your nests? I like to build in the topmost branches of high trees, right away from man. Well, you sometimes spoil his corn for him, said the robin, so he likes to shoot you, and you have to get far away from him then when you build. If the summer is going to be fine with few storms, we like to build our big nests in the topmost boughs, said the rook. But if the summer is going to be stormy, we build in the lower ones. We are very clever like this. Yes, that is clever, said the blackbird. High-built nests would be torn away by the wind during a storm. You are very wise, rook. But all the same, I say that the best place for a nest is somewhere close hidden in a tree, like the oak or the chestnut, or in a close-set hedge. Too easily found, said the big girl, soaring around. If you take my advice, you will build somewhere on high cliffs, where it is difficult for people to get to your nests. And again, we live really, really close to Hunstanton, don't we? If you ever have an opportunity where you go to Hunstanton and you walk along the beach from Old Hunstanton to New Hunstanton, you can see all the gulls in the cliffs nesting. I mean, you hear them first, then you see them. We don't all live by the sea, said the moorhen. If you will let me say a word, I advise everyone to find a nice quiet pond, go to some rushes and build a nest there. You can so easily bend down the rushes and make a sort of platform nest. Then, when you leave your nest, you can bend rushes over to hide it." "Oh, a good idea," said the jackdaw, "but I should be afraid of my little ones falling into the water. It's all right for you, moorhen, because you can swim, but jackdaws can't." "You build in strange places," said the kingfisher, looking at the big jackdaw. "Who else would choose a church tower? Why, it must take you ages and ages to build a nest there, because you have to fill it up with sticks." "Well, who would want to build a nest like you, tucked into a long hole in a bank?" said the jackdaw. "Nasty and dark and smelly." "Sand martin builds in holes and banks too," said the kingfisher, "and it's a very good idea, isn't it, sand martin?" "Very good," said the little brown sand martin. "We sand martins like to build our nests all together, you know. I build mine in the sandy bank of an old quarry. I make a hole in it, and I lay my eggs at the end of it. Supposing rain came and soaked down the sandbank, and it got into your hole," said the starling, "your babies would be drowned." "No, they wouldn't," said the sand martin at once. "I make my hole slant upwards, so any water always runs down and out." Good information, and we've already heard this information, haven't we? Who can remember the bird that was in one of our previous stories, which also designed their nest this way? Can you remember? It involved the kingfisher and another bird. I mean, in this story, it is the sand martin. But in the other story, it was a different type of bird. "That's a good idea," said the starling. "Well, has anyone else any more to say? We still haven't decided what is the best place to nest." Everyone said what he thought, but they couldn't agree. Those that built in holes meant to go on building in holes. Those that built in trees would not change. So they began to talk about what were the best things to use in the building of a nest. "Maybe we can choose something that no one will notice," said the rook. "I think big twigs are the best." "Oh no," said the blue-tit. "I should hate a nest made of big twigs. Moss and root fibres and feathers, that is the sort of thing you want." "I preferred mud nests," said the house martin firmly, and the barn swallow nodded too. "Mud makes a fine firm nest." Again, thinking back to the one I found at St Martha's, that definitely had loads of mud in it, so it could be a house martin, or did that just say swallow? Who agreed with him? Yeah, the swallow. So it could be swallow. "It must be difficult to make," said the lark in surprise. "I don't bother much about making a wonderful nest. The print of a horse's foot in a field is good enough place for me to nest in, and just a few bits of grass." "Mud makes a wonderful nest," said the house martin. "You fly down to a puddle and take some mud in your beak, like this, and mix a bit of straw with it." But nobody wanted to hear. The kingfisher began to talk loudly. "Kiki, kiki, listen to me. I make a very fine nest, and all I use is fish bones." And again, you know that from a previous story, don't we? "Fish bones," said the birds in surprise. "How strange! Don't they smell horrid?" "Yes, they do." "Yes, they do, but we don't notice it," said the kingfisher. "You see, my mate and I catch plenty of fish, and we use the old bones for the nest, putting them in a pile. They make a fine nest, they really do." "Well, we don't all want to catch fish in order to make a nasty smelly nest of fishy bones," said the thrush rather rudely. "I like a nice firm nest made of small twigs, roots, moss and things like that. And I like a mud lining." "Well, so do I," said the blackbird. "But I do like nice soft linings on top of the mud. I can never understand why you don't put one on, thrush." "There's no need," said the thrush. "No need to, no need to, no need to. I always think it is best to make my nest of something near at hand," said the robin. "For instance, I usually build my nest somewhere near the ground, where there are plenty of dead leaves lying about." "Very well. If I use dead leaves, my nest can hardly be seen. It is just a mass of dead leaves among other dead leaves." "Quite good," said the chaffinch, thinking of her own neat and pretty little nest. "Linings are very important, I always think. I like a soft, warm lining for my eggs. Warmth is a good thing for my eggs." "Oh, I think so too," said the long-tailed tit eagerly. "You should feel how warm my nest is when it's finished. I use feathers inside it, hundreds of them, really hundreds." "Well, it isn't everything that can spare the time to go hunting for many feathers as you use," said the robin. "I shouldn't be surprised if you put over 1,000 feathers inside your ball of a nest. It must be so hot inside that I wonder if your eggs wouldn't cook. There was silence. All the birds looked at one another, for they were longing to fly off and begin to make their nests, but nothing had been decided. Well, said the rook at last, shall we all build high up in old tall trees? Sorry, let me read that again. Well, said the rook at last, shall we all build high up in tall trees as I do? No, in holes, cried the tits, the starlings, the woodpeckers, the kingfishers, and the sand martins. No, on the ground, called the larks, the plovers, and the robins. No, in the barns, cried the barn swallows. We always build in barns. No, under the eaves, cried the house martins. There was a great noise of twittering and singing, and no one could really make out what was being said. A big bird suddenly flew down. He cocked his head on one side and said, "Cuckoo, cuckoo!" "Oh, you didn't come to the meeting," cried the birds. "You haven't said what you think. What is the best place to nest, Cuckoo? And what are the best things to use for a nest?" "The best place to nest is nowhere," cried the Cuckoo, "and the best things to use are nothing. I never make a nest. I use yours. Cuckoo, cuckoo! Fancy asking me!" And he flew off, and so did everyone else. And if you look to see this year, you will find that each bird has chosen the place he thinks is best, and using what he likes the most for his nest. It's really fun to watch them so busily at work, which it is. And also from that story we know that cuckoos don't make their own nests, but they use the uninhabited ones from previous birds, so they're quite lazy. Join me next time, and the story will be called Betty and the Lamb's Tails.